So, I wanted to spend some time talking about budgeting fundamentals. In this video, we will discuss the relationship between the mission and the budget. We'll discuss parts of a budget and the purposes of a budget. I want you to think about higher education institutions as an assembly line. And I don't mean any stigma behind that, but in essence, our product is the graduate. And throughout this entire process, we recruit the graduate, we visit fairs, we visit high schools, we meet with them one-on-one and their parents. We provide them a series of support services, admissions, financial aid, records, advising, career services. Sometimes we provide them structures to live. We definitely provide them structures to learn. And we hire personnel to do all of this. The end product is our graduate. Without goals, we don't know what we are prioritizing in relation to this product. But without those goals, we don't understand the cost and the financial commitment involved in producing graduates. And that's really where it brings us to the topic of budget. We know what we want to produce. We know how we want to do it. So let's create a budget so that we can support those activities. So a budget will address the primary components of a mission. And in this class, you've spent time learning about mission and how important it is, and how everything that we do as an institution, down to the functional unit, down to the individual, needs to be tied back to that mission. And the mission helps us to interpret what is a priority so that the budget is prepared to support those priorities. And also, who is priority? Well, of course, we hope the student is priority, but who else is involved in this process? And so I would encourage you right now to pause your video and look at your institution's mission statement. And it can be a mission statement for Murray State, or if you're with another institution. But as you look at this mission statement, ask yourself these two activities. What activities can you infer are financially supported? And who are the stakeholders deemed as priority? So go ahead and pause your video now and participate in this activity. So a budget provides us with a way to track revenue and expenditures in relation to what the institution, in relation to the institutional goals. And so you've read for the last several weeks about different revenue streams. Tuition and fees, maybe housing if you're a four-year institution, annual giving, grants, research and development, services, auxiliaries. So there's a variety of different revenue streams that a higher ed institution produces. And that's largely determined on your institutional type. But with each of those revenue streams, there are compliance-related matters and restrictions with those resources. And so a budget helps us to support what we want to do, as well as make sure that we are watching out for compliance. So when you think about a budget, I want you to think about it in two different components, two different parts. We are most familiar with the aggregate, the dollar summation of major categories for revenue and expenses. But often people don't think about the narrative piece. And the narrative is just as important. When a budget is going for approval through the various stages of approval, through vice presidents or chief officers for a division, through the provost, through the president, through the chief finance officer, all the way up through your governing board and beyond, you have to include some context to the budget so that when they're looking at increases in certain areas or decreases or expected budget shortfalls, the narrative provides them with context. And so these two pieces, the quantitative and the narrative, are what makes up a higher ed institution budget. So a budget has 6 purposes. And at this time, I'll explain these purposes. A budget is a financial representation of the institution's plan. It's linked to the strategic plan. It reflects advice and guidance from the board, senior managers, and other stakeholders. So, for example, I'll use Murray State as an example. Several years ago, Murray State wanted to create an honors college. They saw an honors college as important to the mission of Murray State University. And so, this honors college needed more than just a proposal and board approval. It needed the fiscal support in order for it to happen. And so Murray State decided that it would provide a level of funding to do so. And so you can see how Murray State has continued to support from a sum of $484,777 to now $551,728. They see this as important, and so they're continuing to put fiscal support behind this initiative. That's outlined in the strategic plan. Retain honors college students from first to third year. And then in this strategic plan, it provides you with a baseline to know whether or not you were successful. And so Murray State deems it as priority by putting it in its strategic plan, so therefore they want to fund it as such. And so they create salaried positions with benefits and a pool for materials and travel in order to be successful with this university initiative. A budget is also beneficial or serves the purpose of a contract between management and functional unit. So it indicates what resources will be provided. So for example, athletics. at the beginning of the year based off of board approval of the budget. Monies are appropriated for a variety of different needs. Pay, team travel, facilities. Basically all the needs of a particular functional unit that are essential for it to be successful. It's important to keep in mind, though, that a budget may be a contract. It's not necessarily a guarantee. There are a number of unforeseen circumstances that you'll learn about in this class and through your readings that would negate monies that were provided at the beginning of the term or the beginning of the year. Maybe things from the state level, natural disasters, other unforeseen circumstances, tragic events. But what we do know is at the beginning of the year, it's an agreed upon amount, so that as you move into the year for planning and operations, there's some level of consistency. But a budget also provides a level of contingency. Now, for Murray State, they typically allocate $2 million in a contingency. Of course, depending on your institutional type, where it's located, and a number of other variables, and the population that it serves, your budget contingency may be more or less. But these are for unforeseen circumstances. This contingency will be used first so that other functional areas, the budgets in other functional areas, will not be disrupted. A budget's also used as a control mechanism. So that if I claim that I'm going to use X number of dollars for a specific purpose, the account that's associated with that expenditure must be used for the purpose of that expenditure. Supplies must be spent on supplies. Transactions aren't processed if it's going to result in a deficit. Transactions aren't processed if it would violate the definition of that particular line. So I think about the Wellness Center quite a bit. The Wellness Center has allotted these amount of monies for these specific purposes. I cannot violate the line items in order to purchase something different than what is originally agreed upon. I once worked at an institution where the president of that institution wanted to fund a project that the president and those who were overseeing budget development had not planned for in the previous year. But this president saw it as a priority. So therefore, they put spending stipulations on all the functional units on campus in order to prevent us from spending the money that we were allotted at the beginning of the year so that the president could fund this particular project as quickly as possible. This is unethical, but it sometimes happens. Typically, though, it's a control mechanism for your functional area.